But we continue with economic growth and the benefits of it. So we need to talk about the argument against growth. So one of the arguments against growth is that growth increases inequalities. And when we talk about inequalities, we're simply talking about the gap between
The
the
rich
rich
and
and
the
the
poor.
poor. Yes, good. So yeah, increasing inequalities. Some economists argued that economic growth is increasing inequalities in income and wealth. According to Karl Marx, he argued that workers will live in subsistence wages, while all the benefits of economic growth would go to owners of capital. So according to Karl Marx, he felt that the owners of capital, that means the owners of land, the owners of work, the owners of companies, the benefit of economic growth goes to them, while they only give stipends to their employees,
Minorities.
the employees. So that means most of the reward of economic growth goes to the owners of capital. That is according to Karl Marx. And as a result of that, there's always going to be income inequality. So that's about that. That's the first argument about increasing inequalities. The second one is that it can also be noted that demand is pushing wages up for what are seen as the best workers, while in the middle and bottom, a rise in the supply of labor is pushing wages down. So therefore, the benefit of economic growth are taken by the highest earners within the society. So another another factor which brings about increasing inequalities is the demand for and the supply of labor. So the demand for labor is always high when the economy is growing based on experts. That means employers will pay more to skilled employees, to those that have the technical know-how to carry out their function, their jobs, their responsibility. Unlike the middle and bottom employees, because they lack the ability to have those skills that are needed, they get lower pay. So the point is that with economic growth, emphasis are made on highly skilled employees than low skilled employees. So that means low skilled employees will continue to get less, while highly skilled employees will continue to get higher pay. Why? Because the demand for highly skilled employees will continue to rise during economic growth, while the supply of low skilled employees would increase because the demand for them would reduce. So that means supply will be more than demand. Do you understand?
Yes.
And that brings about income inequality also on the aspect of the demand for and the supply of labor. Economic growth will increase the demand for highly skilled workers. And highly skilled workers become the high earners in the society. So that means the benefit of economic growth solely goes to them. While low income earners who don't have the same skill like high income earners will continue to get lesser. And the supply will continue to rise because they might even be out of employment because they might be replaced with equipment, with technology. And for the fact that they don't have the flexibility to adapt, that means they will be losing their jobs. And when they lose more jobs, those in the middle and the bottom, when they start losing jobs, it means the supply of labor in that category would continue to rise. And that reduces the wage over time. While the demand for skilled workers will continue to rise, and that increases the wage rate. I think you understand how income inequality comes in here. The first issue about economic growth, which brings about increasing inequality, is that economic growth favors, according to Karl Marx, it favors the owners of capital, which simply means they only pay employees the amount of money that they will be able to survive on. The second point is that with economic growth, the demand for skilled workers will continue to rise, and skilled workers are expected to be at the high level of the hierarchy and the high level in the labor market. So their demand will continue to rise. But for the low skilled workers, the demand will continue to fall, which means the supply will continue to rise over time, and that reduces the wage rate. So that brings about income inequality too. I think the second point is clear. However, some countries such as Malaysia has witnessed a fall in income inequality. This will be based on their own structure. Government of the day would have its own objective. So mostly developing countries anyway, they always try to ensure that people are out of poverty. And for people to move out of poverty, it means income must one way or the other have equal fairness. Yes, thank you. So do you understand? So that's the point about inequalities increasing when there's whenever there is economic growth. I think it's clear. Great. So the next one is, so another argument is about growth and happiness. So I talk about growth and happiness. Here I wrote, happiness and income are positively related at low levels of income. According to a Sterling paradox, an increase in consumption of material goods will improve well-being when basic needs are not met, such as adequate food and shelter. But once these needs are being met, then increasing the quantity of goods consumed make no difference to well-being. Therefore, higher levels of income are not associated with increases in happiness. So growth and happiness, they are positively related only at low income. As soon as you become a high income earner, you don't think about the quantity anymore. You start thinking about quality. So for a low income earner, when your income increases, you feel happy about it because now you can consume more than what you used to consume. You can start buying things that you don't used to buy. But as soon as that is done, the next thing is, oh, before now you don't have a television. Now you have a television. So buying a bigger screen television does not change anything because it's a television. So as soon as you are able to, before now, when you are unable to meet your basic needs, as soon as your income increases, that brings about happiness. So happiness and income or growth are positively related when it comes to low levels of income. That is what Sterling paradox is talking about. With low income earners, when their income increases, they become happy because they will be able to consume further. But as soon as they are able to meet up their basic needs, growth does not have anything to do with happiness. Rather, we start thinking about things aside income that will bring about improved well-being, like maybe quality of healthcare, more holidays instead of more working hours, reducing the working hours. This quality of life that might bring about happiness. But as soon as for happiness to be linked with income, it's only on the low level of income. That is what Sterling paradox is about. I think you get the point here. So, therefore, higher levels of income are not associated with increases in happiness. As soon as your level of income starts increasing than what it used to be, you don't think about quantity anymore. You think about quality. So it simply means that happiness is linked to the quantity of what you can consume or what you can afford. But as soon as quantity is done, you start thinking about moving forward. Quality. So quality will come with how much time you can spend with yourself, with your family, fewer working hours, better health care, more holidays. These are quality that might bring about happiness. But income would not anymore. That is the point they are making. So we have growth and happiness linked together, which makes them positively related only when it is low levels of income. But as soon as we go to a high level, we start thinking about other aspects of life aside increasing income. So rather than concentrating on increasing GDP, government of higher income countries should concentrate on factors that contribute to happiness. So countries like developed countries, the Western world, you don't think about quantity anymore. The government of those countries will start thinking about ways to improve the quality of life, ways not to just increase the GDP anymore, but things that will bring about happiness rather than increasing the GDP. Do you understand? So that's all about growth and happiness. I think growth and happiness is clear.
Yeah.
That's another argument against
Economic growth.
economic growth. That economic growth might not bring about happiness. It only brings about happiness at the low level of income. But as soon as income increases, government of developed countries or developed economies should start thinking about other aspects of life that will make people to be happy, not GDP anymore. I think the point is clear.
Yes.
Great. Good. So that's number
6.
Okay. So the next one, the anti-growth lobby. Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, the supporters of the anti-growth lobby tend to be people who are relatively rich, as cutting their consumption or producing environmentally friendly alternative technologies might not create too much hardship for them, unlike masses in the developing world who barely meet their basic needs, will lead to great inequality. So the point about anti-growth lobby is that the rich people value this. The rich people are the ones clamoring for a fall, a way to reduce growth. Why are they clamoring for that? They are clamoring for that because they feel whatever, if growth continues to, if growth can be amended through improvement in technology or reduction in consumption of goods, they won't be affected because they have the financial capability to adapt to whatever situation that comes about, anything against growth. So that's why they clamor for it. They want a comfortable environment. They want an environment free from pollution. But environment free from pollution, environment that is comfortable, will be detrimental to the masses because the masses might not be able to afford such comforts. So most of the time, people that clamor for anti-growth, that lobby against growth, are those that are wealthy, those that are rich, that can afford whatever it comes up, whatever the cost is to improve the environment. They have the financial capability. So unlike the masses in the developing world, because the masses, they are unable to, they can't afford even the basic needs. And you're telling them to start spending on technology that will improve the environment. Where would they get the money from? They barely feed. So which means they won't even think about technology. They won't even think about anti-growth lobby. They won't talk about growth that will bring about an increase in the cost of their living, because anything that comes with anti-growth lobby brings about an increase in the cost of living. And if the cost of living increases, it's only favorable to those that are rich. That is the point there. I think it's clear. So this is the reason why the anti-growth lobby is popular in the West than developing countries. The Western world, they are advanced. Level of income is higher. So they think about the quality of life. But developing countries, developing economies, there is still poverty in there. They are trying to be out of poverty. So everything they need is in the primary and the secondary sector. And increasing growth through the primary and secondary sector will always bring about pollution, will always bring about environmental damage. Maybe in the future, when they're out of poverty, they can start thinking about investing in a clean environment. I think the point is clear there.
Yes.
That is about anti-growth lobby. Any question about anti-growth lobby?
No.
Okay. So this takes us to the impact of economic growth. Are you there?
Yeah.
So when we talk about the impact of economic growth, they said, the impact of economic growth is felt by all economic agents. When we talk about the impact, that means if the economy is growing, it has impacts on all economic agents, consumers, firms, producers, government, even the environment. So what are those impacts? We're going to start with consumers. Are you there?
Mhm.
Consumers. Economic growth allows households to witness rising income over time. This increases their purchasing power. With economic growth, GDP is increasing. Real GDP per capita would increase. Therefore, income within the economy would have increased. As soon as income increases, each individual households will have more to spend. So that means their purchasing power will increase. That is the point there. I think it's clear. However, if the benefit of economic growth are received by only the richest in the society, according to Karl Marx, that it said, those that enjoy economic growth are those that own capital, not the employees. So if the benefit of economic growth is received by the capitalist, it simply means there's no gain of economic growth for the average households. Is consumer clear here? For consumers, we're talking about the benefit of economic growth, which increases their income and purchasing power. But if, like according to Karl Marx, that the capitalists are the ones that enjoy mostly the benefit of economic growth, then that means an average household has no gain when the economy is growing. Consumers is clear, right? Great. Then we go to the firms. For firms, it may provide the opportunity for existing firms to increase sales as well as have rising income. Many firms will be able to make higher profits. So with economic growth, purchasing power, like we said earlier, purchasing power would increase, yes or no?
Yes.
It means demand for goods and services would increase in such economy. As a result of that, firms will be able to make more revenue and profit. I think the point is clear.
Yes.
However, economic growth is accompanied by changes in the structure, which means some firms may disappear. As soon as the economy grows, it will change also the structure of the society, because as soon as the economy increases, as soon as the growth occurs, certain sector of the economy would go into decline. Maybe the primary sector would go into decline, or the secondary sector. People start thinking about services. So that means some sector within the economy would disappear. And what happens to those firms in that sector? They become affected, they become worse off. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's the consequence to the firms. Existing firms will be able to increase their profit because demand for their goods and services would increase. But the point is, economic growth will bring about restructuring. And if there's restructuring, it's simply going to affect certain sectors within the economy. So these sectors might go into decline. So if they go into decline, they go into oblivion. So it means they lose out. That is the cost today. I think it's clear about firms.
Yes.
The next one is government. Are you there? Have it, please. For the government, I wrote, it increases incomes for government through tax revenues. A rise in private sector spending will lead to demand for similar rises in public spending. People will demand for better roads to drive their cars, better healthcare for themselves, so the quality of public service and infrastructure should improve. However, the response of rising tax revenues depend upon the objective of the government of the day. So, the government. Economic growth will allow government to make more revenue through taxes. Income tax will increase. Corporation tax, income tax will increase because consumer income would increase through employment. Corporation tax will increase because firms will be making more profit. So government will be making more revenue through taxation. That is the point there. Also, as soon as that happens, the private sector starts spending. The public, the people will start demanding for a better infrastructure, for a better life, for a quality healthcare from their governments, because they start thinking about quality, like we said earlier. Now they've moved away from thinking about the basic. Now they want quality, and they will demand all this from the government of the day. I think the point is clear.
Yes.
However, the response of government, because as soon as income tax increases, as soon as taxes increases, revenue for government increases. This is when citizens will start demanding for better quality, for quality education, quality healthcare, better infrastructure, yes or no? But that does not mean the government will say yes to everything. It depends on the objective of the government of the day. So the response of a rising tax will depend on the government of the day. So if the objective of the government of the day is not to invest on infrastructure, whatever the citizens say about infrastructure, they will not listen. So that is the problem about government here. Do you get the point here? Taxes will increase for government, which allows government to spend more. But what government will spend on depends on its objective. I think it's clear.
Yes.
So that's about government. Any question about government?
No.
We go to the environment. We talk about the environment. The environment is about how clean the environment becomes. So here I wrote, in developed economies, economic growth is likely to lead to less pollution and a cleaner environment, as economic actors are likely to spend on technologies and projects to improve the environment. In the Western world, economic growth is likely to bring about a cleaner environment, because the economic agents in those economies will be able to invest on technology that will bring about a cleaner environment. That is environment in a developed economy. Now, what happens to developing economies? In developing economies, growth because in the developing economies, they mostly rely on the primary and the secondary sector. Yes or no? So growth in the primary and secondary sector of developing economies will increase pollution and damage the environment. However, further growth in those economies might bring about investment in a cleaner environment. I think it's clear. Environment is clear there, right? Good. So we go to the economy itself. Are you there? The economy, I wrote, growth in the GDP results in the larger economy. It will increase consumer spending, improve the living standards, increase profitability for firms. In terms of jobs, growth may result in more jobs being created or fewer if existing workers become more productive. You know, when we talk about growth might come as a result of efficiency. Growth might come as a result, if it comes as a result of efficiency, it means we are talking about the quality of the labor. which comes through the existing workers. And if it's about the quantity, that means more supply of workers. That means we employ more workers. So either ways, growth will come. That is the point we're making here. I think the point is clear.
Yes.
So actual growth increases real GDP, which in turn reduces demand efficient unemployment as the economy moves closer to full employment. If the economy is growing, it simply means demand efficient unemployment would reduce because the economy will be moving towards full employment. That is about the economy. So this will lead to what? A fall in unemployment and underemployment. You know what underemployment is?
It's when the employment is not at its full potential.
Underemployment means people have jobs, but they have the ability to do more. They still have more time to do more. So that is what underemployment is. I have a job, but I still have some hours to spare. That is underemployment. Do you get underemployment here? So as soon as the economy is moving towards full employment, both unemployment and underemployment would what?
Would decrease.
Would reduce. Thank you. So that would be beneficial to individuals within the economy. Yes or no?
Yes.
So as the economy reaches full employment, aggregate demand is likely to increase, and this will bring about demand, full inflation. So if the economy is moving towards full employment, it will bring about inflation, demand, full inflation. Demand, full inflation. I think the point is clear.
Yes.
So once prices start to rise, workers will experience a fall in their real wages because their real wages is wages that has been adjusted for inflation. Yes or no?
Yes.
So if inflation increases, it reduces their purchasing power. Yes or no?
Yes.
So they will start thinking about indexation, finding a way to increase, bargaining for high increase in wages. If they successfully bargain for high wages, it means firms have to pay more. And if firms are paying more, it triggers cost push inflation. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's the point there. And also, the economy will be affected by the balance of payments. How? The balance of trade in goods and services on the current account will also be affected by economic growth. Why? As soon as income rises, the level of imports will rise. The marginal propensity to import will increase. And what is marginal propensity to income? Imports divided by income.
Import divided by income.
Do you understand? So as soon as income increases, people will spend more on importation. And remember, import is also a component in the aggregate demand.
Yes.
And so if import increases, it reduces the aggregate demand within the economy, and that will affect the balance of trade account, current account. Do you understand?
Yes.
So there is more chance that the balance of trade will move into what? Deficit. Why? Because imports might be more than export. People want to spend more. And this is also withdrawals in the economy. So it's going to affect the circular flow of income, isn't it? I think the point is clear there. So the impact on the trade, the balance of trade will depend on how an economy's growth rate compared with other countries. So the impact is not just going to be on your own country. It also it has something to do with the economic growth within the world too. If import is increasing in other countries too, that means they are doing more, they are buying from your country too. So that might balance things. That is the point there. Another point is that it also depends on the cause of the economic growth. I want to talk about the cause of the economic growth. We're talking about, is the growth based on export-led growth? So if the economy is growing because export in your country is increasing, then it will definitely increase or improve your balance of payments. So it means you might be moving into surplus rather than deficit. If it is export-led. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about that?
No.
And the last one about the impact of economic growth is the current and future living standards. The impact of economic growth depends on who receives the benefit of the economic growth. If it is only the richest in the society, it has no meaning. That means the households, it doesn't have any impact on majority of the households. However, in developing economies, everyone in society is more likely to benefit from economic growth. Why? Because governments in developing economies are trying to move their citizens out of poverty. So that means they have to find a way for income to equal. Do you understand the point here? Therefore, a strong link between rising GDP and living standard will likely benefit households and individuals. And this is what developing economies do, to take the population out of poverty. So there's need for a strong link between a rising GDP and the living standard. If this link is strong, it has a positive impact on the society in general. I think the point is clear. So that takes us to opportunity cost of growth. Are you there? So the last note about economic growth is the opportunity cost of growth. So when we talk about opportunity cost, that means the next best alternative for growth, right? And when we talk about opportunity cost in growth, it's simply linked to the production possibility frontier, where we have consumer goods and capital goods. So to increase consumer goods, we have to reduce capital goods. To increase capital goods, we have to reduce consumer goods. So here I wrote, potential growth is a change in the productive potential of the economy. That is what potential growth is. A change in the productive potential of an economy. That is potential growth. Okay. So it requires an increase in the quantity and the quality of factors of production. So for potential growth to be achieved, both the quantity and the quality of the factors of production have to increase. Do you get the point there?
Yeah.
So there's potential conflicts. Between consuming now and investing now. So if an economy wishes to increase its potential growth, it means it will have to devote more resources to the production of capital goods. So that means we are talking about the economy operating in the PPF boundary. So if it needs to increase its potential growth, it wants it to move further rightward of the PPF. It means it has to devote more resources in the production of capital goods. And devoting more resources in the production of capital goods reduces resources for the production of consumer goods. So in the short run, what happens? In the short run, living standards in the short run would fall, because living standard is mostly linked to consumption, your affordability of consumption, your affordability of goods. That is what living standard is linked with. But now, because the economy wants to improve or increase its potential, it increases potential growth. It means it has to devote more on capital goods. So devoting more on capital goods reduces consumer goods. Do you get the point here? So that's the first thing. Therefore, there's opportunity cost of growth in the short run. So there's opportunity cost of growth in the short run because more devotion on capital goods reduces the resources needed for consumer goods. So there's opportunity cost in the short run. I think the point is clear. However, in the long run, the PPF will shift further to the right. This means both more capital goods and consumer goods can be produced. As soon as in the future, in the long run, the PPC will shift further upward, right, or further outward, or to the right of the PPF. That increases both producer goods and consumer goods. That means both capital goods and consumer goods. So that means the living standard in the long run will increase than what it's supposed to be without that extra that is being put in investment. Do you get it?
Yes.
So if an economy is thinking about the long run, in the long run, investing now improves the living standard in the future. But if you think about consuming now, it affects the living standard in the future. So that is the opportunity cost of growth. So there's opportunity cost in growth, because increasing the potential growth means we have to devote more resources in the production of capital goods now to have a better living standard in the future. So in the short run, the living standard is expected to fall. That is the opportunity cost of growth in the short run. Any question about economic growth?
No.
And the benefit and cost of economic growth? Thank you. So that ends chapter 36.